So let's talk about the allegory of the cave by Plato. This story is packed with so much wisdom that it's a pleasure talking about it. So yeah, let's have a look first at the allegory, what it's about, and then we will see what insights or wisdom is packed in there. And before that, it's also important to see that, it's possible to transmit knowledge but not wisdom, and I think that's part of the story, but just this already up front. So when you look at this cave, on the lower left hand side you see the cave wall, and on the wall there's shadows of some symbols. So in front of the wall you have the people sitting there that are chained to the ground, and their necks are chained, so they can only see the wall in front of them. They cannot look back, they cannot see anything else, they cannot even see down and left and right. So all they can see is, they can see the wall, the shadows on the wall. That's their only reality. So if you ask them what is reality, they would say the shadows on the wall. And that's from birth. So imagine that's their conditioning that they have, and that's reality for them. So in the back, from their point of view, so a bit closer to the entrance of the cave, you have the people holding up symbols, and those symbols are projected onto the wall. So basically the shadows that the people see that are chained, they see the shadows of the symbols of those people holding it up. And then you have a fireplace, which helps to basically, it's the light that projects, that helps to project those symbols. And then towards the right side you basically have the entrance to the cave, and then outside you have the sun, which represents the light or the truth here. So let's go step by step. So this is an analogy, right? So in the analogy, the people that are chained to the ground, they represent society, they represent us, who we are. Then the people holding the symbols, they represent the opinion leaders in society. This could be our parents, this can be teachers, this can be politicians, this can be big corporations, the advertising industry, like any kind of opinion leaders, right? So let's go step by step. So if you ask someone who's sitting from society, who's sitting in chains, and if you ask them what is reality, they would tell you that reality is the shadows on the wall, because that's all they know, that's all they talk about, that's all they see, that's the reality. So if one day you went to one of those and you put the chains away, you free this person, and you say, hey, just look around, you're free now, what would their reaction be? The first reaction, they would turn around, they would probably be anxious and not wanting to turn around, but then they turn around because all they have ever known in their life is to sit there and be chained. So if someone comes and says, hey, get up, you're free, they wouldn't consider themselves to be free, because they want to be part of everyone else. Otherwise they're like awkward, they were like, this weird guy is going now, whatever, so where's he going, So anyway, but then let's say once this person got up and turns around, the first reaction would be like looking at the fire, seeing the light. The first reaction the eyes would start to hurt, it's not used to this light. So that's the first reaction. So this new experience doesn't feel good at first, it's like, it hurts, it's different. And first of all, you're afraid that maybe, the people that you belonged to before, they would look at you weirdly, and now this light, so something feels awkward, at first. But then let's say after a few days or hours your eyes got used to the light, you'll be like, okay, now I can see there's different shapes, forms, But if you ask that person now, what is reality, they would still say, oh, the shadows on the wall is reality. This, I don't know what that is. This is just I don't know. This is not the real stuff. I learned from my parents, from my teachers, from media, from everything that I ever known. I know that reality is the shadows on the wall. So, and imagine if that person went back and said, hey guys, I saw not shadows, but I saw something else which is moving around, and she or he would tell her friends who were sitting who are still sitting in the cave there, they would say, oh my God, she's become crazy, you know. She sees things that don't even exist, you know, because if you only see shadows that ever exist, it's like basically seeing and saying, oh, I saw an alien, you know, they don't exist. So it's like that, you know. So you would never be able to comprehend that something like this can exist, and people would be like, oh my God, this is crazy, you know. Only, I think, if we see it ourselves, we'd be like, okay, fine, I get it. But, you know, they're afraid. Maybe she wouldn't even say it because she's afraid they would judge her and she wants to belong to them. So anyway, so after a while, then maybe after 3, 4, 5 days, or I don't know, whatever it takes, she would understand slowly the relationship between the people and the symbols being held up and the projections on the wall. Because then, as soon as she sees the bigger picture, that actually the relationship of the symbols and the projections, that it's actually one and the same thing, she understands at some point that those symbols are before the shadows. So it seems that this is a higher reality. And if you asked her now, she would slowly understand that this is a higher reality, or that this is reality and the shadows are just a projection, so more like an illusion, you know, the illusion of the people. But still, if she had gained this wisdom now, and she went back to her family and friends and said, hey guys, what you're doing is crazy, that's insane, you're living in an illusion. Like, what would the people say? They would say, oh my God, she has become crazy, you know. Her eyes have adjusted to the bright light, so she doesn't see as good anymore in the dark cave. And her friends would just be like, oh my God. And then she realizes, oh shit, yeah, if I think back, and if somebody came to me like the same way and said, oh my God, I'm living in an illusion, that's not reality, she would have probably reacted the same way. And the strong factor here is as well that, you know, all those people, they want to belong to each other, because you know, it seems like that we have this need to belong to a certain group and not feel lonely, and so that's why it's a very strong drive to believe the old story, you know. So anyway, so if we took her out of the cave, this woman who we freed, then she would see the sun, and again the first reaction would be, oh my God, she's outside a cave and she sees, first of all, her eyes hurt again, she doesn't see anything, same story, right? And then after a while they adjust, and she sees for the first time, you know, all the colors, all the light and the nature and animals and so much beauty, you know. And then again, imagine she goes back even to the opinion leaders and tells her, oh my God, guys, you're like living in a cave in the big illusion. That doesn't have anything to do with life. They would just look at her and think, oh my God, she's a crazy person. I don't know, maybe we have to, like, you know, in the Middle Ages, they probably would have burned her, or, you know, they would have thought, oh my God, she's become crazy, or do something, or whatever, right? So you get the point. So again, now the point starts. So if she went back all the way to the cave people, like the society, and she went back to her friends and said, hey guys, I've seen the truth, I've seen the lie, they were just like, well, whatever. But then, like, you know, on top of that, they would she would go there and they would play their games, you know, like their values of the shadow games. They would look at the shadows, observe them, and they would play a competition of who sees the shadow passing by or what's happening next, and so on. And the girl who has seen the light, her eyes, you know, are not as good anymore in the dark, and they would laugh at her and see, look, she's worse than everyone else in society, because the values and the success criteria in society has become worse. So imagine you're in this reality, somebody talks about the truth or the light, and she actually is performing much worse in the societal standards. They would laugh at her and say, oh my God, nobody should ever do that, because it's the worst that can happen. You won't survive in the society anymore because you can't do anything. And that's the most beautiful thing to see, because that happens to us every day. See, like, you know, we judge ourselves based on, you know, what's in the news. Like, we want to have fame, want to have a lot of money, we want to impress others. It's it's crazy, you know, we work, like some of us, we work 50, 70, 90 hours a week. We are like on this career and we think like, you know, we're like on top of the world, on top of society, and, you know, like we're a big lawyer or we're a big businessman or politicians and we have so much power, you know. But if you really look at it, what's happening, it's just within the values and the principles of society, you know. And I think, you know, it's not a healthy sign to be well adjusted to a sick society. That's what Krishnamurti said once, and it's so true. That's exactly what happens here. What we try to do is we try to adjust ourselves to a really sick society, and by doing that, at some point we feel horrible because we know what we're doing and it's not true to ourselves. It just doesn't feel right, and our mind tries to tell us, no, you know, once we reach the fame and the money and this relationship, everything will be great. And it's like this hamster wheel, you know. And when we realize that the hamster wheel is actually not motorized, because we can have this wisdom and we can actually see beyond all of this society, then we start to be able to question things. You know, that's, I think, one of the biggest abilities that we need to have here, is to question things, challenging the status quo, because it's not easy. But that's exactly what it's all about. And, you know, I remember being in 5th grade, and I had this immense insight about something I don't remember exactly, but I remember this feeling was so strong. I had this huge insight. It was a shift in my mind and how I perceive everything, the world. And I wanted to, and I didn't know this analogy that back then, you know, I didn't read this kind of stuff when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11. But then I wanted to tell my friends, and I was like, you know, some of my close friends, I was like, oh my God, it's exciting, I have to tell them. And then just before I told them, I was like, hold on, there's two options. Either I'm going to be called crazy or I'm going to be embarrassed. Why? Because embarrassed, because what if they say, I said, oh my God, this is like that. They're like, obviously I know it's so obvious, I've known it for 3 years, but you know, there was no way I could have known if that was the case. Or the other option would have been, oh, they would have said, oh my God, what? I don't understand. What do you mean? Are you crazy? And those were the two options back then that I could consider. So I was not bothered telling them. And you know, that's the case with everything, because the point here is that we all live in our own reality. That's like, I think, such a tremendous insight, you know, that we can have, is basically to see that there's no objective reality out there. So everyone has their own value system, their own perception, their own conditioning, their own beliefs, and that is what creates reality. So, you know, and of course, there's a different reality, as we saw, a different reality when it comes to the people in the cave, or the opinion leaders, or someone who has seen the truth or the light. But ultimately, when you think about it, it's everyone has their own reality system. So we cannot tell the other person, hey, you're right, I'm wrong. Or we don't need to actually convince other people, you're right, I'm wrong. What we actually constantly do. We try to tell our kids how they should live their lives. We try to tell them how they should think and how they should feel. We tell our partners, you should not do this, you should not think like this, you have to improve this. You know, we are like coaches and tell people what they should do and what not. But, you know, it's very important to understand that fully, that there's no such thing as right and wrong, a right attitude or not, because everyone lives in their completely own reality. Which is shaped by many different things, by the dramas, by conditionings, by belief system, in which culture we grew up, and so on and so on. So we cannot tell other people what they should do. And you know, you have so many people like this. You have all the people telling others, oh no, this is reality, you have to do it like this, and no, you're wrong, no, I'm right, and people actually never look at what's actually happening. So on this level, but on the same time, I hear many people who are sort of, I think, you know, in a way stuck in this, meaning they really think there's no higher order, you know, there's only, everyone has their own reality. This is true, as I said. And, you know, I think I think we're wasting our time if we tell people who are really stuck to their own opinion and perception of the world and reality, to tell them how they should think and what they should do, because they will never understand that there's different realities, and they will defend their reality so much, and that's a problem, right? That we usually think that our reality is everyone's reality. That's like the reason why we try to sort of, try to have a missionary with all the people around us. And this happens, on a religious level. This happens on a democracy level, like having all the big, some of the big countries wanted to bring democracy to something, but this is all fake. This is nothing to do with anything close to truth, because they just try to project their own reality onto others, and that's not the way. Because most of the times it's all on the same level. That's the thing. When you have different realities, and most of the times they are on the same level, they're in the cave, they're part of the cave. Or even worse, when you have the opinion leaders and they project their reality or their interest, they want to make profit, they want to use people like, as modern slaves or whatever it is. But then they project their reality, or they put their interest first and try to use them. So if you have different realities on the same level, there's no right and wrong. However, and I think many people, that I speak to, they say, oh, but if it's my reality and if it's your reality, so that's all the same, so it doesn't matter who's right and wrong. Yes, that doesn't matter, there's no right and wrong. However, there is a higher order when it comes to realities, as you can see in this allegory of the cave, because you have different realities. So let's say you have 7 billion different realities within the cave. Yes, there's no right and wrong, because it's on the same order. Then you have the opinion leaders, which is also still the same order. They just have a bit more power and influence. But then there's this level or order of having seen the truth in the light. And there is for sure a higher order. However, at the same time, it's very important, because most of us claim that we have this higher order reality, although it's not, because the mistake we make, the fallacy here, is that we think we have the reality. It's a different reality from the other person, and ours is higher, but it's not. It's the same level. And you hear this when this happens, when people want to try to convince you of how you see the world. They tell you, no, you're wrong, I'm right. You hear that you have to do this in order to do this. That's all. You can smell this from far away when people do that, when they're on the same level. That happens constantly, and they would judge others for not seeing the reality and all this stuff. But that's not how it is. Like, when you actually see from the light, from the truth, all you do is you show compassion, you love. You don't try to convince others. Maybe you help them in a subtle way, not even talking about anything that you're right and wrong and they have to do this and the 10 steps to become happy. None of that. It's in a very humble way. You just feel in a way the obligation, to point towards the truth, towards others, but in no way do you want to convince them or create an organization that you have greater mission and you want to convert everyone. Not like this at all. So I think that's a very beautiful story and analogy.